All right, let's talk about quantum computing. It's coming, and honestly, it's a huge deal. For some businesses, it's going to unlock trillions in value. But for others, it could be an extinction-level event, seriously. So the big question, right, is which one will your business be? In this explainer, we're going to break down the playbook for this quantum future, and more importantly, what you need to start doing today to get ready.
Okay, so to really get a feel for this power, let's use a simple analogy. Picture a giant, super complex maze. A normal computer, a classical one, tries every path one by one. It goes left, hits a dead end, turns back, tries right. It's methodical, sure, but it's slow. A quantum computer? It does something mind-bending. It explores every single path at the same time. It doesn't just find a way out, it finds the best, most efficient route pretty much instantly. And look, this isn't just some cool party trick. This crazy problem-solving ability, it translates into staggering amounts of money. McKinsey is projecting that by 2035, quantum could unlock over $600 billion. And that's just in the finance industry alone. Think about that. We're talking about completely changing everything from how we model risk to high-speed trading. But the impact goes way, way beyond Wall Street. We're talking about a fundamental shift across pretty much all of our most important industries. I mean, imagine discovering new life-saving drugs in just a few months instead of decades. Or think about optimizing global supply chains so perfectly that waste and delays just disappear. These are the kinds of problems that, until now, have been basically unsolvable, and quantum is poised to tackle them head-on.
So, to make sense of all this, here's our game plan. We'll start with the quantum maze, then look at 4 possible futures. After that, a new security threat we all need to know about, the global race for dominance. And finally, your first quantum steps, the playbook.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the quantum maze. Here, we're going to break down the core challenge that honestly, every business leader is facing right now. So the biggest question on everyone's mind isn't if quantum is going to be this huge disruptive force, it's when, right? Is it 5 years away, 15? And that uncertainty is exactly what makes planning so tough, but also so critical.
And this is the classic trap, right? The danger of just waiting and seeing what happens. With these exponential technologies, they always feel kind of distant until they aren't. They hit that famous hockey stick curve, and bam, the world changes seemingly overnight. And by the time it's obvious to everyone, well, the winners and losers have already been decided.
Okay, let's move on to Section 2, 4 possible futures. So how in the world do you plan for something this uncertain? Well, Deloitte has actually mapped out 4 really distinct scenarios that we all need to be ready for. These scenarios, they really hinge on 2 big questions. First, how fast is the technology itself actually going to mature? And second, even if it's ready, will we have the skilled people and the ecosystem ready to actually use it? And this simple grid gives us 4 very different futures. Let's say the tech arrives early, but the talent isn't there. That's a surprise scenario. Think brutal talent wars and a massive first-mover advantage for anyone who's ready. If both the tech and talent are ready early, you get a market explosion, a total gold rush. If everything's slow, well, that's a quadrant. And if the people are trained up but the hardware is lagging, that's a leap. The point is, a winning strategy has to work no matter which of these 4 boxes we end up in.
So what's the one thing we should all be watching for? The key signal? It's something called the logical qubit. See, today's physical qubits are, well, they're a bit messy. They're noisy, they make errors. A logical qubit is different. It basically bundles a bunch of those physical ones together with some fancy error correction to create one stable, reliable unit. Once we can build a few hundred to maybe 1,000 of these, that's when you'll know the era of practical quantum computing has really truly begun.
All right, so beyond all the market disruption, quantum brings something else to the table, a profound and frankly urgent risk to our entire digital world.
A powerful enough quantum computer won't just be fast, it'll be a master key. It will have the power to break the very encryption that protects, well, everything. Our banks, our governments, our personal data, all those digital locks we rely on every single day could just stop working.
Now, you've probably heard about this harvest now, decrypt later threat. And it's a real thing. But what's interesting is that the immediate pressure isn't actually coming from future hackers. It's coming from today's regulators. The thing that's forcing everyone's hand right now is the global shift to new standards for something called post-quantum cryptography, or PQC. This isn't something you can do overnight, it's a multi-year transition. And for every major company, believe me, that clock has already started ticking.
So, with this much technological power and this much security risk at stake, it's really no surprise that it's fueling an intense geopolitical race for quantum dominance.
And right at the front of this race are the US and China, and they have two very different playbooks. In the US, it's mostly a private sector game, led by the tech giants like Google and IBM. China, on the other hand, is taking a government-led approach, outspending the US 4-to-1 at the federal level, and they are laser-focused on achieving what they call quantum supremacy, especially when it comes to unbreakable communications.
So when you consider the huge market potential, the massive security risks, and this global competition, it all boils down to this. The debate is over. The question is no longer if your business should engage with quantum, but how.
And that brings us to Section 5, your first quantum steps. So where do you even start? Well, the good news is you don't need a billion-dollar research lab. The key is to take smart, what you could call no-regrets actions. These are things that will pay off no matter which of those 4 futures we end up in.
This playbook really has 4 key moves. First, make someone accountable. Appoint a C-level sponsor to own this. Second, think hybrid. Plan for a future where quantum and classical computers are working together, not one replacing the other. Third, start small. Use the cloud platforms that are out there to experiment with low risk and, importantly, low cost. And fourth, and this is a big one, don't try to go it alone. Partner up with universities and startups to learn faster and de-risk the whole thing.
And believe me, the timeline for this is moving fast. The UN has already named 2025 the year of quantum science. Major players are targeting a commercially useful machine by 2027. And by 2030, analysts project that thousands of companies will be using quantum as a service. This isn't science fiction anymore. This is the official roadmap.
The best way to think about all of this is like flipping a light switch. It seems so simple, right? You flip it and the light comes on. But it only works if all the wiring behind the wall is already in place. And that wiring, that's identifying the right problems for quantum to solve, building up your talent, setting a clear strategy, that's the work that has to happen today, long before that switch ever gets flipped.
So really, the choice is pretty simple. Is your organization going to start laying that wiring now, preparing thoughtfully for what's coming? Or are you going to wait for the switch to be flipped and risk being left scrambling in the dark?